Hey everybody, thanks for joining. My name is Cody Owen. I'm an application expert here at MLC CAD Systems. Today we're going to be looking at how to electrify your designs with these SOLIDWORKS tools. One in particular we're going to be looking at is SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematic and Electrical 3D. So one thing we're going to be looking at is some examples of what the electrical engineer would see with this application, what the mechanical engineer would see with this application, and how the managers or the administration side can interact with this application. You're going to want to have certain permissions for certain people to be able to access all of the data that you have there in your database with your SOLIDWORKS electrical side of it. So you might want to have that on lockdown. So we'll take a look at that towards the end of the day. But we'll start with what an electrical engineer sees in the kind of the day in and day out, as well as the mechanical engineer. My colleagues are going to be online here with me, so if you have any questions, please feel free to chat away. If not, you can wait till the very end to ask questions. Alright, now everyone, we are going to take a look at our Projects Manager here inside of our SOLIDWORKS application. And so, as you can see, all of these projects that I have listed here in my Projects Manager are the ones that I'm currently working on. If I was working in an organization, then everybody would be able to see exactly what I'm seeing, and of course everybody would be going in and out of them, making changes, updating, your normal workflow of with a project itself, working through a project. And what we want to look at is some of the end user side of it and also some of the administration side of it as well. That's something that's not gone over a lot during these presentations like this, so I do want to mention that towards the end of the day. But right now what we're going to look at is just opening up one of these projects, and we're going to simply go in here and see how to add some wires and some components, some symbols, and just see kind of the overall process of that, see how simple it is to set up. So I'm going to open up my electrical schematic here. Alright, and now this thing's opened up, I'm going to take a look at my document book. My document book is where everything lives. Everybody's pretty used to SOLIDWORKS Mechanical. Their feature manager tree over there on the left hand side of the screen. I kind of get the same thing here in SOLIDWORKS Schematic. You can see I've got a cover page, drawing list, line diagram, which a line diagram is really good for your 10,000 foot view. As a manager, I want to be able to maybe take a look at this, make sure all the components are there that I know that's supposed to be in the project, and kind of as a review and kind of keep working forward. As far the engineers, it's just a sanity check. He's like, oh yeah, did I put that one in there yet? Oh yeah, I've got that one in there. And you can keep going. Now let's take a look at the other page here. And so this other sheet is our power scheme. This other sheet that we have here is our control scheme. As you can see, they're a little bit different from each other, as one is mainly the power circuit, and the other one is for the control circuit. For what we're going to do here is we're going to finish off by creating our extra circuit here for the motor itself. As of right now, it's not finished, so I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to put this in here. So as you can see, I can go through and I can click through and pretty quickly and very easily set up multiple wires at one time, right? That was pretty simple. Just a few clicks and I was able to get exactly what I needed very easily. And using our symbols manager over here on the left hand side of the screen, I can go through and I can actually find or select one of the groups to choose one of my favorite items that I typically use over and over and over. And as for the association, we're going to associate this symbol to our existing motor, right? We already had an existing motor in our line diagram, so all we're going to do here is just associate it to it, so that way we can continue forth. Alright, so now let's go ahead and add a couple more items in here. Items that we're going to add is the thermal overload protection relay and also a contactor. And first I'm going to see if I've already got something over here, and I do. This is one of my favorite symbols to use is this contactor, 3-pole contact. And once again, I'm going to associate it to that other existing contactor that already has the manufacturer's information there. You can see that listed there on the screen. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is turn our attention to the overload relay. If I look over here, I've got a protections group already available in my symbols manager, and I'm going to go ahead and use this little guy right here. I'm going to make sure to add this thermal load relay and associate it to the one that I already have in my system. Now that we have associated our thermal overload relay with our new symbol, we see that we have this little guy pop up over here to the left of this. This is our cross-reference diagram, and these blue lines indicate that we have available circuits. Well, we know for a fact that these 3 wires are going to each side of this. So I want to double click on the symbol to take a look at our manufacturer parts and circuits, and we can see our right? Well, SOLIDWORKS Electrical is on top of it. It is there to protect you when you least expect it. And it told us that the overload relay had a different circuit than the one that we used with our symbol. So we can just simply associate those to it, and now those available circuits will go away. And the ones that are still available are obviously still there. And one thing I like to point out here is just a tip. You can always leave that available, leave that up on the screen, but what you can do is you can go to your layers and you can select do not print as one of your layers. That way you can use it as a sanity check, and when it gets printed off as a PDF, you won't see it there either. The last thing I want to talk about is the terminal blocks with this schematic that we're looking at right now. As you probably already noticed, that each time we put a new symbol inside of our line diagram, all of these wires were automatically trimmed. That's something I kind of take granted of these days because I'm just so used to it, but everybody out there that's probably used to using tools like AutoCAD, that's a big deal, right? Going through and automatically trimming those out, not having to manually do that. What it does is it does 2 things, of course. It does trim everything out, but it also lets you know if you have a connection made. That's what all these little red dots are visible for. Each one of those represent a solid connection to one of those symbols. So let's go ahead and finish this up by adding a couple of terminal blocks in here. So for this, I'm going to add the N number of terminal strips, and I'm going to give it the direction to let it know which way it is exiting out of the control box and going towards the motor. I'm going to associate it with my terminal block that I already have, and I'm going to click OK to all terminals to make sure to grab that for each one of those. And as you can see here, our new terminal strip is represented by the mark X1 along with those 4 terminals. To finish this up, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how simple it is to create a macro inside of SOLIDWORKS Electrical. And so what we have is we have a circuit here that we could use over and over and over and over. Well, we have a macros group over here on the right hand side of our screen, just like the symbols group. And what we have are several groups that are available to us: the motor start, motor command, power supply, so on and so forth. But as you can see here, I already have a couple of items in my motor start group. Well, I want to add this new one I just created because this is something that I'll probably end up using several times down the road. So it is as simple as left clicking on it to highlight it, dragging it over, giving it a name. We'll just give it a name there. Also, we want to make sure to always put this in a class that would make sense for the application, as well as your own library. If you don't have a library just yet, make sure to add one, because then after you've built up your library, you're going to be using everything from it instead of all the other existing libraries that come with it, which there's dozens of them. So you can take advantage of using only your library instead of all the other ones after you've become very acclimated with the product, and you are good to go. Okay, so I'm going to click OK here. It's going to create the macro for me, and now In order to use this macro, I can simply left click and drag it and drop it out here on the screen. And you're going to notice when I line it up there, I'm going to get a paste special. I use my air quotes for that. I know you can't see me, but we'll call it a paste special. And the reason for that is because not only is it going to look at the locations, the functions, the wires, the different components that are there, but it's going to say, hey, do you want to keep the existing mark, or maybe even create a new mark, or remove the numbers that are there for the wire numbers, so that way you can go back and recalculate the new numbers. So all of this is a summary of everything when you go to paste special. And of course, it gets very granular here. You can go through and you could look at each one individually and decide whether you want to associate it to one that's already there, which this one is. It's nice and color coded, let me know. You can rename it or create a new mark entirely. So I'm going to finish this out here. I'm just going to let it do its thing, and when I look at it, I can tell that it picked up the same terminal strip. It just continued 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got another motor here. I've got my M1, now I've got my M2, and I'll just like to double check to make sure that everything is good to go. Speaking of double checking your work, you want to double check the entire project when you get finished with making all of your connections with all of your symbols and all your wires and everything else. Well, you can take advantage of some of the design rule checks that you have in your project. Now, we have a couple of them in our project currently. We have one that's labeled components terminals not connected, and this gives me the exact results that I'm looking for if there was something not connected. Isn't that awesome? What about the voltage drop in cables? I don't have anything there, but check this out. There's not only 2 design rule checks inside of this, there are a couple dozen of them. So you can go through and you could check to see if you've got any empty terminal strips, any parallel wires, any unused cables, wires that haven't been routed in 3D. If you have the connector between SOLIDWORKS Electrical and SOLIDWORKS Mechanical with SOLIDWORKS Electrical 3D. So there's a lot of different checks here you can perform to double check it to make sure that you are good to go at the end of the day. Now that you've double checked your own work, your boss man probably wants to check your work, right? And the best way they can manage to do that is with reports. Now, there are a list of reports that are available for this project that's already been added to it. You can see, let's see, list of cable cores grouped by cable, list of wires grouped by line style, bill of materials grouped by manufacturer. So there's several of them here available and ready to use for this project. Well, what about, is that it? Well, maybe there's more. Well, yeah, there are a lot more here. There's several of them that are available to you inside this application, and you can use any one of these reports on your projects. As a matter of fact, if there's one that's pretty close to what you need, you can take it and customize it to whatever you need to get the results that you're looking for. So they're not all set in stone, they are customizable, which is really, really nice feature. Now that everybody's a little bit more familiar with how an electrical engineer would approach this electrical project, now we're going to take a look at what a mechanical engineer would see when approaching this little project here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the projects manager and open up a project that I've been working on that I know that has a little bit more complexity to it. We can take a look at it over here on the left hand side of your screen. You can see how you can have 2 projects open at the same time, which is kind of nice. We'll take a look at the wiring line diagram. As you can see here, I've got several cables going to several different components here inside of my project, and we're going to take a look at that in SOLIDWORKS Mechanical on the 3D side of it. So let's take a look at our PC tower. I'm going to double click on it here to open it up. So let's take a look at what we already have here. So far it looks like we have several electrical components. We got the fans in place. I can see that we've got a couple of connectors here already in place, and you can see that these this is probably one route here, and I can see this other one goes to this other guy back here. Alright, so to really finish this off, what we need to do is we need to insert the rest of those connectors, and then we can route those up accordingly. And as of right now, we are missing a couple of them on the motherboard, so let's go ahead and work with those first, and then we'll add the ones to the actual fans themselves. So over here on the left hand side of your screen, this is where the mechanical engineer is going to work on this electrical project. I've got SOLIDWORKS open with the 3D add-in turned on, so I can see my electrical manager. And over here on the left hand side, I can see there's a lot of components, but there's some that have already been inserted, some of them not. So we'll check this out. I like using this little button up here called Hide Already Inserted Components. I'll check the box for that one. Then I'll go over here and I'll take a look at the motherboard, and I can see that I have these two that I need to insert. The reason I know that, they don't have the checkbox next to them. Check this out when I go through and add these to it. So we'll start with this one first. I'm going to insert it. You can see how simple and easy that is. I've got some mate references set up for each one of these parts, and it's all in a matter of getting my mouse just in that right spot, and the mate references match up, and we're good to go. So now you can see the checkbox next to these two items. If I uncheck it and recheck it again, now those are no longer there. They're no longer available for me to insert. But I do have two more that I need to insert here on this little guy for these two fans. I believe they're right here in our fan control. Yeah, here we go. Here's our 2-pin connectors. This is for our fan 3, so this guy will go right there. Okay, let's get this last one placed in here. So I'm going to insert from the file, put that in there. Okay, so now that I've gone through and I've inserted everything that I need to route those other two harnesses, I can go ahead and do that. But just as a safety precaution, I like to go ahead and save before moving on to any other further actions. So here we go. Everything's looking good. I'm going to route harnesses. I'm just going to route the ones that I know I need to get routed. I don't want to reroute the other ones because the other ones look pretty good. So there's no need to fix those. Hit my green check here, and we're going to let this chug along for a couple of minutes. Alright, it looks like this thing just got finished up here, and as you can see, this routed this other harness going over from the motherboard to the fan, and the motherboard from the fan, and they're nice and neat, right? Well, check this out. I've got the actual paths that they're supposed to follow hidden, but you can see how closely those follow those paths, and that is very specific to routing harnesses, cables, and wires inside of SOLIDWORKS Electrical 3D, and it's using this little guy here, this create routing path. So just wanted to give you a little peek under the hood there. That's how you set those up to make those look so nice and neat and pretty. The last thing I want to show you here is the flatten route functionality. So there's probably a few of you thinking like, man, it would be nice if we could maybe produce those harnesses so that way you could see them like on a drawing. Either in a SOLIDWORKS mechanical drawing or even the SOLIDWORKS electrical drawings. And so over here on the right hand side of the left hand side of my screen, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to flatten one of these routes, so that way we can just take a look at it to see what all goes into flatten out of a route. As you can see here, it comes in, it shows the route just by itself. It kind of isolates it from everything else. And you do have the option to choose whether you want to look at it as a to scale or not to scale option there. So I'm going to leave it as a not to scale option, and I'll go ahead and let it produce the drawing template or the drawing as well, so that way we can just at least take a quick look at it. And after hitting my green check there, it's going to go through and it's going to start adding all of the BOM templates, the connection points, everything and anything and everything that I need to know about this. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I can take these and I can put these inside of the SOLIDWORKS electrical schematic instead of having it here. But yeah, just one of the other things that you can do with this tool. So what I want to show you now is a portion of the administration side of it that I mentioned a little while ago. So I'm going to go over to my SOLIDWORKS electrical manager here, and we're going to take a look at the projects manager, and let's take a look at this to begin with as far as the administration goes. Any of the projects that you see highlighted in blue just lets the user know that either you or some other user, SOLIDWORKS electrical user is connected to the database, has a project open, and that's it. So anytime that you see that, the blue text, don't get alarmed. It's just a heads up to let you know that somebody else is working on it. The one thing that you can't do is you can't work on the same drawing sheet. Two people can work on the same project at the same time, but as far as like the same power scheme, or like a line diagram scheme, or a cover page, none of those items can be worked on at the same time. So one more thing I want to show everybody, technically it's a couple more things, but that's the rights management tab here in the interface configuration. Inside of this application, you have a way that you can password protect your account. So you can go in here, you can set up your own users, you can set up groups, anybody that needs access to this application. And when they go to launch this application, if they don't have a username and password, they can't log in. So that's your first guard against anybody trying to get your proprietary information from this application. Another one is the user rights management. The user rights management, of course, the users can get in, but they have limited permissions on what they can do while they're inside the application. For instance, you might want engineers to work on the projects. You might not want them working on your library information, because your libraries can have everything: your title blocks, your cable references, your symbol library, your manufacturer parts library. There's a lot of stuff in there. So you would want to have that on lockdown to make sure that only a selected few have permission to access it and make changes to it. That's going to be it for my presentation with SOLIDWORKS Electrical. Please reach out to me or my colleague or your account manager, anybody here at MLC. We're happy to help one way or the other. Appreciate everybody's attention and everybody's time, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.